Morning. First, I'd like to thank Maria for inviting me. This is my first time at Milano Polytechnic. Other than a few problems with the taxi strike yesterday, it's been a pleasant trip so far. So what I'm going to talk today is this. As you may all know, that Istanbul is waiting for a large earthquake. And we've been doing a lot of monitoring and activities related to early warning and rapid response. So I'm just going to briefly summarize what the current situation is. First, I'll say a few words. What's the significance of earthquake risk for Istanbul? If you look at this map, this is our main fault in Turkey, North Anatolian fault. And if you track the earthquakes in the 20th century, you see a definite migration to the west, starting from 1939. These are all big earthquakes on this fault line, and it's gradually moving to the west. The last one we had was in 1999 here, and the only unbroken part of this fault is the part that near Istanbul, right here. Actually, 3 weeks ago, we had another earthquake, 6.5. It was on this end of the fault. So this part is still remains unbroken. And all the scientific studies saying that there's a 65% chance of having a magnitude 7 or bigger in the next 30 years. And this is the fault line that goes under the water here in Marmara Sea, and Istanbul is here. So it's a serious threat, and we need to do something because Istanbul has 20 million people now with the surroundings. I'll just mention first the early warning and rapid response networks. We have what we call rapid response stations. These are strong ground motion stations. We put initially 100 stations. Now it's become almost 200, although I said 100 plus. These are spread out mainly along the Marmara Sea region of Istanbul. And these are all real-time stations, continuously monitoring, continuously being analyzed. We also have several agencies like the Istanbul Gas Distribution Network. They have their own networks. We combine their stations with our stations. So we have over 200 stations already at the moment. What they do is they have these pressure distribution stations they call district regulators, and they have all monitoring stations in here. Then we can use their data and then generate and get the risk from their gas distribution network. The way we utilize this data is like this. What we did is we divided the city into 400 by 600 meter grid cells. And since we have all the stations, we can easily extrapolate all the ground shaking information over these cells. And then we generate these kind of maps. This is a peak ground acceleration map. You can do it for any other parameter, and these are all done in real time. What we also did is in each cell, we characterize the dominant building type. Looking at this characteristics of the structure, we say that this is a dominant building cell in this cell. And we developed 24 building categories, depending on the age, geometry, structural system, the material, and stuff. So each cell has a characteristic building type. And we did that also for a lifeline type of structures, meaning like gas lines or the water lines. So depending on their properties, we also have categories for this kind of structures. And for each category, we have these what we call fragility curves. That's the variation of the level of damage in that category of structures with the ground shaking parameter. A ground shaking parameter can be different. It's for building type structures, it's mainly peak ground acceleration, but if it's a pipeline or underground structures, we use peak velocity. And since we know the shaking and this information for each cell, we can easily generate these kind of damage maps. Like this is an example of a heavily damaged buildings for a scenario earthquake in Istanbul. We can do this in the municipality boundaries, the district boundaries, or we can also do it by the cell base, because all our information is based on cells, 400 by 600 meters. So this is another simulated earthquake data, number of collapsed buildings per cell. As I said, these are all done instantaneously because the data is coming real time. We can also do the scenario type of earthquake. Since we have all that information, we can generate various rupture scenarios on the fault line and then simulate the ground motions and then generate these maps and the damage maps for expected scenario earthquakes. And this information comes to our campus, which is over here along the Bosphorus, and we transmit this to the municipality and the governor's office, as well as the emergency management component of the military that deals with these kind of things. And every day at 10 o'clock, this system is tested by an artificial earthquake, just to make sure that all the sensors are working. And we have actually developed a really nice program, a software. This was developed under the NEARES project of EU. And this is an open source, open to everybody. You can, if you type LR in Google, you will find it. This does these kind of intensity maps and the ground motion risk maps at several different levels. Level 0 is if you have the least amount of information, like you have no building information and stuff like that. Level 1 is a little bit better database, so you get more information. Level 2 is the most intense. You get vulnerabilities and the damage and based on spectral displacement and also some economic losses and things. And as I said, this program is available on the web because it was part of the EU project. And this also has a version for lifelines, water and power lifelines, and this is a screenshot of it. Then we have the early warning network. This is Istanbul is here, and then this is the kind of an approximate path of the fault line. We know exactly where the path is because all the underwater surveys. And we have these stations right closest to the fault line, some of them on these Princess Islands in Istanbul. And we also put some ocean bottom seismometers about 2 years ago. There are 5 of them. They are right on the fault line in the water. And we get real-time data from these. And because of the distance and the slowness of seismic waves, once we get the earthquake information from these stations, it gives us 5 to 7 seconds because speed of light is much faster than speed of seismic waves. And that 5 to second time, you can do a lot of things as long as there's no human interference, like shutting off the gas lines or shutting off the tunnels or the bridges and things like that. So there, we are still testing this in a lot of structures, like we are testing in tall buildings or some power plants. And we are testing it for this Istanbul, the gas distribution network. And also we have this recent completed tunnel crossing the Bosphorus, and they are also receiving this early warning signals and testing it. And we also have this fast train from Ankara to Istanbul. This is also using the early warning signals for stopping the trains. In addition to those, we have some special arrays. We have 4 downhole arrays because there are some parts of Istanbul, there's a lot of soft soil, very deep sediments. And this is typical, one of them. We have 4 sensors at 4 different depths, starting from the 25 meter to 50 meter, 70 meter, and 140 meter. And another station, we go down to 300 meters. And these are also all real time and providing information on the site amplification in those regions. We also have like more of a research-oriented type of arrays. This is one of them. This is a T-shaped array, and the 22 stations and station separations are from 5 meter to 30 meter. We are doing this to get this special correlation of the ground shaking because when you do risk assessment, that spatial correlation becomes an important factor when you're dealing with the insurance type of work. Then we have a lot of structural health monitoring arrays. This started initially for historical buildings, like this is the Hagia Sophia Museum. This was one of the first ones. It has about 22 channels collecting data in real time. And then we have several big mosques, the Süleymaniye Mosque, and then the Fatih Mosque, and then Sultanahmet Blue Mosque. These are all being monitored in real time. Then we have the two suspension bridges. This is the first one. This was instrumented by a private company, but we are managing the data from this. This is about 258 channels. And then this is the second bridge. This has 44 channels. Our institute instrumented this. This is also providing real-time data. Then we have tall buildings. This is the one of them. This is the tallest building in Istanbul at the moment, although it won't be very long. It's about 232 meters, 62 stories. We have 30 channels of sensors at these locations in this building. As I said, we had an earthquake 3 weeks ago, 6.5, and we get a really nice data from these structures. I'll just show you an example. This was interesting, that's why I put it there. This is the displacements in the short direction, this short direction. And then this is the displacement in the long direction. You can see a really big ringing. I mean, the distance between these two lines is about 4 meters. So the building kept vibrating almost 15 minutes. And of course, when you're in a tall building, this can really scare people, although there was no danger in terms of the magnitudes of the shaking, but people started rushing to the stairs, and a lot of people got injured because they weren't using the elevators and just rushed to the stairs. And this is the other direction, again, the accelerations. You can see the earthquake stopped about here, but you get these big ringing. And we've seen this a lot because we are monitoring some buildings in Abu Dhabi too, and they have a lot of tall buildings. And they had an earthquake last year 900 kilometers away in Pakistan. And those buildings shook about 15 full minutes. And people rushed to the stairs, and then there were a lot of injuries, although there was no danger structurally. Just the perception of shaking, that very long shaking, 10, 15 minutes, really scares people. And these are the frequencies. It's basically, they have 3 frequencies. This one and that one are the translational ones, and then there's a torsional one. One of the reasons that you have very long duration shaking is the damping in these buildings are very low. These are the major damping from this earthquake. It's 0.6%, 0.7, 0.9. Typically, we use 5% damping. In tall buildings, you never see 5% damping. The taller it is, the lower the damping. And this is something we have to consider in our designs because we are assuming too much damping when we are designing tall buildings. And we see this in every earthquake. The taller the building, the lower the damping value. And another one I mentioned, there is this tube tunnel for the metro line crossing from the Asian side, which is this side, to the European side. It's about 1,400 meters long. So it's a 2 parallel tunnel for the metro line, one going one direction, other in the other direction. And we get a really nice data from this too. This is made of about 11 concrete submerged sections. Each is about 150 meters long. And we put 132 channel monitoring system on this one. And in this last earthquake, we got a really nice data. And this is where the earthquake was, right here. These are the trains. One is going one direction, the other one is going other direction. Same in here and then here. This is about 30-minute duration. So when there was an earthquake, there was actually a train passing, so the data kind of mixed together. And we did look at the data and that did the animation of this. Of course, the amplitudes are very exaggerated because the maximum deformation was about 2 centimeters in this thing. This is basically sitting in mud. There are some parts of it they strengthen with putting concrete piles, and then some parts were more flexible. You can see that, like for this part, there's much more deformation than the others. And we've been spending a lot of time dealing with this real-time data, because when you do real-time monitoring, you really have to analyze it in real time. You cannot go back and then try to look at it. You just don't have time. It's constantly accumulating. So we developed this software, basically can do the main characteristics of the structure in real time. And this is without human interference. But of course, you have to calibrate the software for every structure. It basically has 4 windows. One window, you can see the waveforms. This can be either model ones or the displacements, accelerations. It's all user selectable. Then you see the frequency content, and you see the time variation of the damping and the frequencies on this window. And then you can see a wireframe animation of different modes or the total motion of the building. We put this in mainly on the multi-story building type structures, currently operating. And finally, our last work on this area has been this, what we call as a mobile earthquake information system. This is based on the mobile technology. We have the applications for Android and the iPhones and iPads. What happens is we provide the information to the phone users in real time when there's an earthquake. It's the location, magnitude, shake map, passive stereo, whatever. And then users provide us information about the earthquake, how they felt, like shaking, intensity, damage. And people got really interested in this, so we are collecting a lot of data, and actually we can generate now shake maps based on the information that we receive from these responders. I think the phone companies are charging like very tiny amount of money for people to use this, and then they give us the money, so it creates a nice funding too for us, because they have millions of subscribers. So when there's an earthquake, let's say the user feels an earthquake, and then he clicks the application, says, I felt an earthquake. Then he gets a list of earthquakes, the last earthquakes, and which one he might be felt at that time. So he marks that, and then he replies several questions. And then based on those questions, we generate the shake maps and then compare it with our instrumental shake maps. So this was kind of short presentation. I just wanted to give the basics, but I can provide more details if anybody is interested.